Some famous American uncles, 6 to be exact. Some of my favorite family members have been uncles, like my Uncle Emery, who owned a general store at Marion Springs, Michigan, and also my Uncle John, who was a baker in the Air Force. Here's a list of 6 pretty famous uncles that you have probably heard of at very least once. We begin with number 6, good old Uncle Sam. The dude who Uncle Sam was based on was Sam Wilson, who owned a meatpacking plant. Uncle Sam has been a patriotic symbol for the United States for a very long time. When the War of 1812 broke out, the government contracted Wilson to supply meat for the troops stationed close by. He began stamping crates for the Army with a large U.S. A government inspector visited the plant and asked what the initials meant. It is said that a worker shrugged his shoulders and replied, "It means Uncle Sam." The nickname spread quickly among the soldiers, and it wasn't long before all Army men were said to come from Uncle Sam. As the progression continued, Uncle Sam began showing up in newspaper illustrations, and the more popular he became, the more patriotic his outfits became. In 1868, Thomas Nast dressed Uncle Sam in a white beard and a Stars and Stripes suit for a political cartoon. Mr. Nast borrowed the look from a famous circus clown of the day named Dan Rice. Number 5, Uncle Tom. This famous uncle originated in Harriet Beecher Stowe's book Uncle Tom's Cabin, and this uncle is both greatly loved as well as frequently despised, depending on what your race is. Uncle Tom was a simple, servile, but he was also a noble, high-minded man as well as a devout Christian. Miss Stowe got her inspiration for Uncle Tom through conversations that she had with her cook. The book was released in 1852 and quickly became one of the best-selling books of the 19th century. Uncle Tom's Cabin played an important part in arousing anti-slavery emotions, which resulted in the Civil War. In time, Uncle Tom became a derogatory term for African Americans, referring to someone who cooperated too closely with those whites. And Uncle Tom was eventually flogged to death in the book by his owner, Simon Legree, and I'd always wondered where Simon Legree came from. Number 4, Uncle Arthur, played by Paul Lynde in the popular TV series of the 1960s, Bewitched, that starred, of course, the lovely Elizabeth Montgomery. Uncle Arthur was one of 2 favorite uncles on the TV in the 1960s. Can you remember who the other one was? You'll find out shortly, as he is number 1. Number 3, Uncle Remus. Joel Chandler grew up in the South after the Civil War listening to the folk tales told by slaves. The most helpful was an elderly gardener in Georgia that Chandler called Uncle Remus, and he made him the narrator of his books. In the book, which was enormously popular, Uncle Remus, a former slave, entertains his employer's young son by telling him traditional Negro tales featuring Brer Rabbit, Brer Fox, and Brer Bear. And number 2, while speaking of animals, no list would be complete without Uncle Wiggily the rabbit, who I remember from my own childhood. Uncle Wiggily's stories have entertained generations of children. And finally, number 1, my favorite fictional uncle from 1963's spooky comedy TV series, The Addams Family, is, of course, Uncle Fester. Uncle Fester was created by Charles Addams for his New Yorker cartoon, where he was never identified, but of course, for the TV series, was given a name and a relationship. He was Morticia's Uncle Fester. Uncle Fester was played by famous childhood star Jackie Coogan, and in 1923, Coogan was the biggest star in the country, but his popularity faded as he grew older. Well, that's it for this time. Please like and subscribe, and thanks for stopping by the Dennis Morrison Channel.